Hi everyone, this is Annalisa. Welcome back. With Christmas coming, I've been testing out different ways to make ornaments. I'm not a huge fan with the results that I've had making ornaments using the bulb type ornaments, so when I saw circle ceramic ornaments, I decided it was totally worth it to give it a try, since it would basically be like painting tiles. I ordered them, and when they came in, I fell in love with how they looked. Probably one of the biggest challenges that I found was trying to tape the backs of them. I forgot to record how I did this, but if you would like to see how I tape my ornaments, just let me know in the comments and I will try to work that into an upcoming video. To tape them, I tape them very similarly to how I tape my tiles. I took the whole box of ornaments, and I lined them up on the floor and made rows of them, and then I taped the backs of them, went in with my craft blade tool to separate them, and then did final touch-ups with my scissors. I'd like to remind everybody that I am a ColourArte affiliate, and with ColourArte's Black Friday event going on, where you can get a 25% discount, I decided that it would be a lot of fun to show you guys 6 different ornaments, and that way you could see 6 different color combinations, as well as share what I thought to be some of the best ways to do things, even if it was by pointing out what I may have done wrong. I will make sure to list all the supplies and colors and discount code in the description. One of the biggest things I found to be important was because of these bubbles. I found it was really important to use paint that had not been stirred before I put it on. I commonly go in with my paint and mix it before I start adding in, or before I start putting it on my pour, and I found that I spent a lot of time popping bubbles that I probably could have avoided had I just actually not done that. So if I were to do this again, I'd probably go in and make sure that whatever colors I used, I stirred them 30 minutes to an hour in advance. One thing that is worth pointing out with this one is that this palette knife ended up being way too big, which made it hard to get a full swipe. It did, however, come up with an interesting result. I really enjoyed this one. It didn't turn out like any of the others, which was really surprising. So maybe the palette knife was a good touch, but I find that the palette knife that I'm using to tip this pour, that's actually like the best size to use for it. And so when I was doing these, I found that it was really important to make sure that I got as much excess paint off as I could. But because they're so small, you want to make sure that you have the area that you want to get bigger completely lined up before you do any spinning. Otherwise, it's really challenging to tilt paint off. I actually kind of wish that I had maybe tried to thin my paint down a little bit before I did my tiles, because it probably would have made things a little bit easier. I have yet to figure it out whether it's better to have too much paint or not enough paint on these tiles, because it is so challenging to get them completely, to get enough paint off to make sure that they don't squiggle. And so it it takes some time to make sure you get all of the excess paint off, but definitely make sure you do, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end and then having them squiggle. So I also in here wanted to try a few different ways of doing them. This one I did as a bloom, and while I really liked doing the bloom, I really should have checked on my cell activator before I did it. It had thickened up and it made it so that my cells didn't develop as well as they should have or could have. And so my next tip is to definitely check on your cell activator before you start doing this, because it definitely because the space is so small, you really want to make sure that your cell activator is on point when you're doing this. I ended up going in and adding some fresh Australian Floetrol and fresh paint just to kind of bring it back up to par. And so that one, I did find that I also had a bit more trouble trying to get all the excess paint off, but again, I cannot tell which is the best method to do that, whether it's too much paint or not enough. I do know that when you have like this amount of paint, it tends to work best. I also found that making sure that my paint was completely spread out before I started, where my pillow paint actually touched the sides of all of like the whole circle, worked the best. It made a huge difference in how well I was able to get them to spin off the excess paint. This one is super pretty. I really like the colors in here. Another thing that I found was, because they are so small, adding too many swipes actually makes it not look at, or too many swirls. Adding too many swirls kind of can be a bit of overkill, so be careful when you're adding swirls to just add like one or two. Don't overdo it. I went in with my Cricut weeding tool for these, and that's what I used to pop all of my bubbles to make sure that my painting didn't look like it had the pocks at the end. One of them, I did make it to the very end, and it looked like it had little tiny white dots in it, and I was so disappointed. It wasn't any of the ones that I've included on this one, or on this video, but it definitely does make a huge difference when you are at the very end, to just go in, look really closely, pop all of the bubbles. That's where it helps to have the Cricut weeding tool, and then also having your embossing tool, because you can go in with your embossing tool, and any of the bubbles that have popped that are overly noticeable, where you then see your pillow paint poking through, you can take your embossing tool and just lightly touch on the different areas and smooth out any noticeable spots that have poked through. With this one, I almost feel like I did a little too much with swirls. They came out nice, but I kind of didn't think through making them, and so it kind of left for it looking interesting at the end. I should have avoided this third swirl. It just was kind of more than was necessary. So I made sure that I was getting all of my excess off of the edges, and when I go in before I spin, I like to get around the edges of my painting. That way I can actually see if I have any like how much paint I have coming off of my tile. It's definitely hard to tell once you hit a certain point if you're getting enough off, and so I just find scraping around the edges is the best way to do that. So with this swipe, it was one of those that I actually missed the pocks, or I missed getting the bubbles before they turned into pocks. I was really kind of bummed when at the end I woke up and found a giant bubble poking out from under my paint. I was able to kind of smooth it over a little bit, but it was just really frustrating, and had I taken an extra few seconds at the end, I probably would have caught that bubble was gonna appear. So with this, I noticed that I kind of needed a little bit extra to make sure that my paint was going to spin out nicely, and so I went in and I just added some extra around the edges, and that was just to kind of aid with making it flow nicely. So when I was doing this one, I thought it would be fun to test out just doing a swirl instead of like the many different swirlies that I usually do on a lot of my others, and that actually created a really cool result. I was really surprised. Normally it's not the way that I would do it, but it definitely turned out really cool. And with this, I had a lot of trouble trying to make sure that I got enough paint off because I wanted my cells to show nicely. So again, that is the biggest tip out of all of this, is make sure that you get all of your excess off so that it will dry nicely, and make sure you pop all your bubbles. Anyway, that's my 6 ornaments. I hope you enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you are not already, please consider subscribing. Have a great day!